has been a few weeks. A lot has happened since the last time I updated you. So I think the last time I updated you was a Thursday, and I was 31 weeks that day. The following Tuesday, so I was 31 and 5, I was getting my kids ready for school that morning and felt a whole lot of crampiness. Not necessarily contractions. I've been having contractions this whole time. Braxton Hicks that just like tighten my belly. Sometimes they've been timeable. Sometimes they've been painful. But that morning it was more of, it felt like period cramps. And it was just bothersome. So I called the doctor that morning and they wanted me to come in and get checked. And I honestly, the whole way there was like, I'm just being a nuisance. Like, they're working me in, and then I'm gonna get there and they're gonna say, it's Braxton Hicks, you're fine. Go home and rest. So I was kind of like talking myself out of going. I mean, I was still going, but the whole way there I was kind of like shaking my head at myself. So I got there and the doctor said, we are going to do a fetal fibronectin test. Which, if you don't know what that is, it's something that checks to see if you might go into labor within the next 2 weeks. So she's like, we're gonna do a fetal fibronectin, and then I'm gonna check your cervix, and then I'm gonna hook you up to the monitor for about 30 minutes and see what your contractions are like. So she did the swab for the test, and then she checked me, and then she says, so we're not gonna do the monitoring because you are about almost 3 centimeters and you need to go straight to the hospital right now. So I was like, am I gonna be there for a long time? Am I like, what? And she's like, we're gonna need to get steroid shots in you for the babies, and you're gonna be on magnesium, which I'll get to in a minute. But so I said, can I go home and get my hospital bag? And she was like, do you have someone that can bring it to you? Because you need to go straight there. So I knew there was some urgency in her voice. I went straight to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, I called my caseworker because I knew if I called the intended mother that I was just gonna burst into tears, because I already burst into tears when I called my husband, and it's just stressful because I felt like, oh my gosh, what if they come? I'm not even 32 weeks yet, and of course you want to cook them longer, and I didn't want to feel like guilty, like it was my fault. I don't know, I was just emotional. So I called my case manager at my agency and got her to call the mother, because I knew that if I called, that the second she answered, I would just burst into tears and probably not be able to efficiently communicate what was going on, and I didn't want her to be even more worried, like, what's wrong, why are you crying? I got to the hospital. In the meantime, M texted me and was like, you know, it's gonna be okay, we're praying for you, let us know if we need to come, let us know what the doctor says. So I got there. Right when I walked to triage, it was like heaven sent, because I was about to write my name down to check in, and this lady was standing there talking to the nurse, and she was like, where are you from? And I was like, I said the name of my doctor's office, and she was like, we were expecting you, right? And I was like, well, yeah, she said she was gonna call, and she was like, come with me. So she took me back to the administrative office and got my insurance information and my driver's license and all that stuff, and I got checked in right away, and I skipped triage altogether. So I got checked in at there, and they took me straight to labor and delivery. I got on my gown, I got hooked up to everything, I got my IV started. Immediately they started giving me a high dose of magnesium. I've had magnesium previously with my daughter like 5 years ago. I went into preterm labor with her at 32 weeks, the same time. It was like a weird coincidence. With her, I was really dehydrated though, and they think that's what happened. I had a lot of ketones in my urine, and anyway, I just knew what to expect. I knew the magnesium was gonna be bad. I knew it was gonna be really hard. I knew it was gonna make me feel awful, but I also knew that's what needs to happen to stop labor. So they gave me the steroid shot, they started the magnesium, and about 3 hours later, even though I was still on magnesium, I was contracting every 3 minutes, and they were starting to get painful. The doctor came in and told them to bump up my magnesium. So they gave me another huge dose of it. And at that point, I had already told my friends and my husband, who were there with me earlier, to go home and go to sleep, because I wanted my husband to stay home with my kids just so they weren't thrown off their schedule. And I didn't think any of my friends needed to stay with me because honestly, when I'd had the magnesium with my daughter, they also gave me pain medicine and Phenergan for nausea, and I just passed out. I just slept the whole night. So I was like, I don't need anybody to be with me. Well, since I was dosed with such high magnesium, I was terrible. I was throwing up. I couldn't lift my arms and legs. I could barely lift my eyelids. And about 2 in the morning, the nurse came in and checked all my reflexes, like with the little hammer on my knee and my foot and stuff, and none of them worked. And she was like, I think you might have magnesium poisoning, and we need to get the blood work team up here really quick to check your blood to see what level you're at. So then I'm like freaking out. Like, I felt like I was gonna die. I was hot. I couldn't swallow because it makes your throat so dry, but I couldn't really like lift my arm to pick up ice chips or water or anything because my whole body felt like it had sand poured in it. Like I couldn't lift anything. So anyways, they got the blood work back, and if you're at a level 8, then you have magnesium poisoning and they would have to give you something to counteract it. And I was at a 7.5, so I was close. Every nurse that came in there was like, I've never seen anyone have to get this much magnesium. I've never seen anyone this sick from it. I mean, it was just not good. The doctor agreed to turn it off for 3 hours to let me kind of like recover a little bit, and then they had to turn it back on the next morning because I needed to have the magnesium for 48 full hours to give the steroids time to work for the baby's lungs. So long story short, the rest is just kind of not very important details, but so that was Tuesday morning. I got to the hospital and I left the hospital Friday night. The first 2 days they were giving me magnesium. Thursday was more just they were observing me to make sure when I went off the magnesium that my contractions wouldn't start back up. And then Friday I stayed to get an iron infusion because I've been really anemic. So fast forward to now, I am 34 weeks and 1 day. I've been on bed rest since that happened. So I've been on bed rest for 2 weeks. And then I have 2 weeks of bed rest left. I'm on it till 36 weeks. And in the meantime, since I left the hospital, I've been back to the doctor's office twice to be checked when I thought I was having more contractions or I thought something was happening again. So what happened with that is yesterday I was having tons of that crampiness again and contracting every 4 minutes on the dot. So I went in. I was honestly expecting them to say this is it because they were so regular and my contractions haven't been that regular yet. But when I got there was no change. My cervix was still the same as it was when I left the hospital. Almost, they say like a 2.5. When I left the hospital I was 70% effaced. She told me yesterday I was about 50, so that's better. They also did another fetal fibronectin test. Oh, I forgot. So when they did the first time she did the fetal fibronectin test, she said she wasn't even going to turn it in because she figured it would probably be positive. I don't know why she didn't actually end up running it with the lab, but anyway, she didn't. So they did one yesterday and I got the call back today that it was positive. All that really says is that fetal fibronectin is basically the glue-like hormone substance, whatever, that keeps the baby's sac kind of intact in the uterus. It's like what's keeping the baby in there. And as you get closer to delivery, that fetal fibronectin starts to break down. And when it breaks down, the fluid or liquid of it, you know, goes to your cervix. So that's what they're swabbing. And if it's present, obviously it's started to break down. And if it's not, if it hasn't started to break down yet, then it's negative and they can guess that you're probably not about to go into labor. So it came back positive, so we know it's breaking down. We know it's doing something. That doesn't really give us a solid timeline, but the doctor, the nurse that called me today said usually if it's positive, you can expect to deliver within 2 weeks. That was kind of a given anyway. My practice told me at my very first appointment when they knew it was twins that 95% of their patients deliver twins between 34 and 38 weeks. So 36 is right in the middle of that. And I'm 34 now. So they also told me that if I went into labor starting at 34 weeks, that they don't do anything to try to stop it. Let them come, because obviously if they're trying to get out and it's time for them to get out, then they're gonna do better on the outside than they are on the inside. I'm going for weekly biophysical profiles. The past 2 times I've went, the babies have passed at the highest level. So they're still very active, they have good fluid levels, they are doing practice breathing, their heart rates are good, all of that's great. We had a little bit of a concern last week that they might be small. At one of the biophysical profile, it came back that they were measuring 3.5 pounds each, and that was pretty small for how far along I was. But the tech who did that ultrasound told me that that was probably, I needed to consider margin of error, because the babies at that point were laying like this on top of each other. So baby girl was straight up and down like this, her head down here and her butt up here, and baby boy was laying sideways on top of her like that with his head right here and butt up here. And so it's really hard to measure them when they're like flat against each other. They sent me to maternal fetal medicine anyway to get a growth scan and a Doppler study, and that was done 2 days ago, and their weights came back estimated at 4 pounds 9 ounces and 4 pounds 7 ounces. So that's a lot better than the 3.5 pounds. I didn't want to make a 15-minute long video, so I'll cut it off there. I'm not gonna do all the, my symptoms are my back hurts, my hips hurt, I can't breathe, I'm heavy, I feel like the babies are gonna fall out of me any second. Every typical symptom for the end of pregnancy. I'm still planning on a vaginal delivery. Someone in my last video commented that they'd like to know my birth plan, so maybe I'll do a video of that coming up here soon. But I have a feeling that the next video you guys see from me might be our birth vlog. Hopefully sometime in the next few weeks that will happen. In the meantime, if you do have any questions you want me to answer, you'd like me to answer, put them in the comments, because maybe I will do a little Q&A. I can't find my measuring tape anywhere to show you my belly, but it's huge, so I'll just show it to you, but I'm not gonna measure it. There it is. So that's them at 34 weeks. Anyways, thanks for watching. Sorry it took me so long to get an update up, but it's been real crazy, as you can tell. That's my story, so I'll see you soon. Bye.